Hi and welcome to Trig Graphs Day 2. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the graphs, trig functions and their graphs. We have some vocabulary that we need to go over. A periodic function is a function for which there is a repeating pattern of values over equal intervals of x. Each complete pattern is called a cycle. The amplitude is one half of the positive difference between the maximum and the minimum values of the function. Okay, or else you can look at it as the maximum function, maximum value of y. A midline is a horizontal axis that is used as a reference line about which the graph of a periodic function oscillates. Down here, this would be considered the midline. Most of the time we see it as the x-axis, but every once in a while we could shift our graph upwards, and then the midline would be there. Period is the length of the interval of x values over which the function completes one cycle. That's where one full cycle ends. The frequency is the number of cycles that its graph completes in the interval of 2 pi radians. And the interval is what we use to label the x-axis. All right, some key ideas. When x varies from 0 degrees to 360 degrees, or 0 to 2 pi radians, the y values for y equals cosine x range from -1 to 1. The same pattern of y values is repeated every 360 degrees, or 2 pi radians. So, for example, the cosine of 60 would be equal to the cosine of 420, which would be equal to the cosine of 780, which is equal to 1/2. Because of this property, sine and cosine are periodic functions with periods of 360 or 2 pi radians. So general curves are y equals a sine bx or y equals a cosine bx, where a is the amplitude, it's the absolute value of a, and that's your maximum value of y. Frequency is b, it's the number of full cycles between 0 and 2 pi. The period is 2 pi divided by b, and that's where one full cycle ends. And the interval is the period divided by 4. And we use this when we label our axes, our x-axis. Answer each of the following. State the amplitude of the function y equals 3 sine 1/2 x. The amplitude is the a value. The absolute value of 3 is 3. Again, I got that from up above. Y equals a sine bx. A is your amplitude, b is your frequency. State the domain and the range of the function. Well, the domain is my x values, and there are no restrictions on our x values for a trig function. So we have y equals sine 2x, so our domain would be all real numbers. And our range, we just talked about up above, is always going to go from between the amplitudes. So the amplitude of my function is 3, so that means my highest value is 3. My lowest value would then have to be -3. So it's -3 less than or equal to y, less than or equal to 3. Find the frequency and the period of the function for the function y equals 2 cosine 3x. Well, the frequency is the b value. The b value in this case is 3. And my period is 2 pi divided by b, so it's 2 pi over 3. And that's all you have to do with that. Find the values of x between 0 and 2 pi for which y equals sine 2x is a maximum, b a minimum, c 0. Well, this is what we need to look for. A is my amplitude, and the absolute value of a in this case is 1. B is my frequency, which is 2. That means I'll have two curves between 0 and 2 pi. My period is 2 pi over b in this case is 2. So my period is pi. And my interval is my period divided by 4, so it's pi over 4. So let's see here. We do t-charts for trig graphs. We just do them instead of vertically, we do them horizontally. I start with 0, and then I have 1 pi over 4. And then, so this is 1 pi over 4, and then 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which is pi, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, which reduces to 3 pi over 2, then 7 pi over 4, and then 8 pi over 4, which reduces to 2 pi. And then we need to evaluate the function. So I put in 0 for x. 2 times 0 is 0. The sign of 0 is 0. 2 times pi over 4 is, well, let's think about it in degrees. It's a little bit easier than in radians. Pi over 4 is 45 degrees. So 2 times 45 is 90. The sign of 90 is 1. Pi over 2 is 90. So 2 times 90 is 180. The sign of 180 is 0. 3 pi over 4 is 135. 135 times 2 is 270. So the sign of 270 is negative 1. And then 2 times pi, which is 180, is 360. The sign of 360 is 0. And my period is pi, meaning that once I get to pi, my pattern repeats. So then I should have 1, 0, negative 1, 0. Okay, so find the values for x when I have a maximum. Well, my maximums are going to occur when I have 1s. And I have 2 1s. So it occurs at pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. My minimums are going to occur at negative 1. So these are my maximums, these are my minimums. And my minimums occur at 3 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4. And then my zeros occur every place else. So I have a 0 at 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. For number 5, write an equation for each curve. Kind of hard to see on here, but first thing we need to do is look at our amplitude. Our highest value here, this is a 2. This is 1 right here. So that means my amplitude has to be 2. I have to determine what kind of curve this is going to be, whether it's sine or cosine. Well, when we were graphing yesterday, sine curves always started at 0, 0, and cosine curves start at the amplitude. Since this is starting at the amplitude, this has to be cosine. The next thing is the frequency I have to worry about. This goes all the way to 2 pi. You can see here that that's 2 pi. So how many complete sine curves do I have between 0 and 2 pi? Well, this isn't even a complete sine curve. This is half of a sine curve. Therefore, my frequency is 1/2. So it's y equals 2 cosine 1/2 x. And then the next graph that I have, let's look at the heights here. This appears to be right about here, which is 0.5. And then down around here being negative 0.5. So this is y equals 1/2. Sine or cosine, it starts at 0, 0, so it should be sine. And I need to figure out how many curves I have between 0 and 2 pi. If you look here, this ends at pi. So that means to get to 2 pi, I'd have to do another complete curve. So it would be 2x, because I would have a frequency of 2 curves between 0 and 2 pi. All right, last page. Graph y equals 3 sine 2x from 0 to 2 pi. Well, my amplitude is the absolute value of 3, which is 3. My frequency is the b value, which is 2. The period is 2 pi divided by b, so in this case it's 2 pi over 2, which is pi. And my interval is then the period divided by 4, so it's pi over 4. My interval tells me what to count by. Pi over 4, and then 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2, and then 3 pi over 4, and then 4 pi over 4 is pi. I can stop here because my period tells me where to stop. So then go back to my function, substituting 0 for x. 2 times 0 is 0, sine of 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0. Pi over 4 is 45. 2 times 45 is 90. The sine of 90 is 1 times the 3 out in front gives me 3. Pi over 2 is 90. 90 times 2 is 180. The sine of 180 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 pi over 4 is 135. 135 times 2 is 270. The sine of 270 is negative 1 times the 3 out in front gives me negative 3. And then pi is 180. 2 times 180 is 360. The sine of 360 is 0 times the 3 out in front is 0. And I'm graphing from 0 to 2 pi. So it means I have to start at 0 and end at 2 pi. So I have the point 0, 0 on my graph. And then pi over 2 is here, so that means pi over 4 has to be halfway in between. And halfway in between, my value is 3. And then at pi over 2, I'm at 0. And then 3 pi over 4 will be halfway between pi over 2 and pi, and that is at negative 3. And then at pi, I'm at 0. And then I'm just going to repeat that pattern. Halfway in between, I'd be up at 3. And then I'll be down at 0. Halfway in between, I'll be down at negative 3. And then I'll go back up to 0. So my curve looks like this. Okay, it's a little harder to draw on the computer than I thought. And this is y equals 3 sine 2x. All right, one more graph. Graph y equals 4 cosine 1/2 x from 0 to 2 pi. My amplitude is 4. My frequency is 1/2. My period is 2 pi divided by b, which is the frequency. 2 pi divided by 1/2 means I'm going to multiply everything by 2. So I'm going to end up with 4 pi. The denominator will cancel out. So my interval is 4 pi, the period, divided by 4. So that is pi. So this is x, this is y. I start at 0 and I count by pi. So I have pi, and then I have 2 pi. And I can stop there because I only have to graph to 2 pi. I don't need to keep going. So 0. Half of 0 is 0. The cosine of 0 is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. Pi, pi is 180. Half of 180 is 90. The cosine of 90 is 0 times the 4 is 0. 2 pi is 360. Half of 360 is 180. Cosine of 180 is negative 1 times the 4 out in front is negative 4. So 0, I'm at 4. At pi, I'm at 0. And at 2 pi, I'm at negative 4. Now it has a curve to it. It's not a straight line. Your curve's going to kind of come out, swoop down, and then kind of curve again. So this is y equals 4 cosine 1/2 x. Notice frequency is 1/2. That means between 0 and 2 pi I have half of a curve. 4 is my amplitude. That's the height. If we go back up here and look at the one we did right before this, same thing. My frequency, my amplitude was 3, so the height is 3, and my frequency is 2, meaning I have two curves between 0 and 2 pi.